another episode of Literary Gladiators, the show where we discuss and debate literature in all of its forms. If it's written work, it's game. Let's meet the panel.
I'm Ari.
I'm Sara.
I'm Kim.
And I'm Josh. And Kim, it is great to have you back on the panel.
Hey, Kim.
It's been too long.
Nice to see you again.
Hi, shaking hands. I can multitask. That's cool.
Kim, last time she was on the panel was back in season 5. Mm-hmm. So it's great to have her back.
We
for
did
season 8.
We did the one on the porch.
She was she took part in we were on the porch at the time. She was in Arlene Sardine.
I was just thinking about that today.
Which inspired the sheep one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry, sheep breeding. Until then, sheep breeding. Oh, okay.
That was called Hide and Sheep.
She was in Boy Who Drew Cats. And
a bunch of other episodes.
Yeah, she was in some of the group videos. She was in season 4. But today we are going to be going over a poem from a South Korean poet named Chong-Ju called A Sneeze. And Chong-Ju was actually one of the most renowned poets in South Korea during his time. It's really interesting that we're going to be able to explore this one. And Ari, you have a discussion starter?
Right. So, my question, for those of you who don't know me, I'm a very deep person. I go very deep into things, and you guys may not immediately understand why I'm asking this question, but you might, hopefully. I think it's a very interesting discussion starter. This poem's called Sneeze, the Sneeze. And do you think that this poem is more of a psychological feeling or a physical feeling?
It is interesting because I think what you're trying to say is, can this be taken for face value or as symbolism?
Well, not exactly, because that would be me being. I would have said, "Do you think this is literal or figurative?" That's not what I'm asking.
Okay.
Like, for example,
is this an actual sneeze or is he?
No, that's still the same. Let me explain. So here it's like, I stepped out into the blue autumn day's winds that touched the rice paper door. I sniffed at the weather and sneezed. Now, are you saying that is physically that you stepped out of the door into the autumn and you sniffed and you sneezed, achoo, and that's how it felt? Or are you saying that you stepped out of maybe something that was making you sad, a blue autumn day, something that was making you sad and that was bothering you, that touched the rice paper door, and then you sniff to smell something new and you're so surprised by it that you psychologically sneeze? Do you think it's more of a physical or a psychological?
I wouldn't say more psychological, but for me, I would have more internal, I guess.
Internal is fine too. Yeah.
I would say it's more internal, the way I read it.
I agree with Sarah.
I see it more in the way that if is somebody's reaction, whether it be a sneeze or something that somebody says, whether it be embarrassing or such, whether it is going to have such a reaction.
Mm-hmm. Let's think about this for a minute, Josh. Kim, you haven't said anything yet. What's a sneeze? Just tell me what you think a sneeze is.
You mean the poem or like the action?
The action.
It's a propulsion of air caused by an irritant.
Mm-hmm. So it's basically like a violent reaction caused by an irritant. So what this poem, you could say, is by stanza or by the whole thing, it is, as Josh said, a reaction to something that has been very, very sudden. I guess you could say like a sudden death, or something really, really, really has changed. I like the line, although I don't have the whole line, but the line that ends in traces that stir the waves of an old love. Does that mean that the person in this poem has just broken up and now he's suddenly, word sudden here, coming through and having to start something new? When it says, as someone else says my words, has a flower overheard and passed them along, does that mean that something has happened where someone else has taken something from him and it's being spread out, but it happens so fast that he has to react to it.
I'm not, it could be looked upon so many different ways, but I feel that, I think that he seems to have a concern about what other people are thinking. Because he constantly repeats the idea of whether or not somebody is saying his words or reacting in some way that
I feel like this could be a song rather than a poem.
I think that could be said about poems. But
Well,
I
this
don't know
one
about
in
this
particular, I meant by the structure of it. Let
know
me
about
explain.
that.
So, like,
May I?
Oh yeah, go ahead, Kim.
Okay, so I don't know if this is true for the majority of Asian cultures, but okay, I read a lot of manga growing up, and occasionally in anime or manga, sometimes if two characters were talking about another character in another scene, it would occasionally cut back to the character being talked about sneezing and or remarking about that. So that was my immediate thought, was connecting it, but I don't know if it's the same thing across all the cultures.
So you're believing that one person could be saying somewhere, someone's saying my words, and then another person could be saying, I stepped out, blah, 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 and then back to the other person saying someone is somewhere saying...
No, I think more it's that he thinks that he sneezes and he thinks that somebody might be talking about him.
That's what someone
feels
said.
like a
Either
call and
that or
response.
he's copying him or
Call and
more
response.
mocking him.
Absolutely feels like a call and response. If you know what a call and
Yeah,
response
no,
is.
I feel like this could become like sing-song. Like you could like somehow.
Do you want to know what this song? And I don't know how many of you have heard this song, but you know what this reminds me of? "Who by Fire" by Leonard Cohen. Because the main lyric in that is, "And who shall I say is calling?" That's like the main lyric. Somewhere, someone's saying my words.
So Chong-Ju was
Very,
he
very
was
close.
inspired by Western culture, but it was in particular Charles Baudelaire, or the same. The poet, the French poet, has the same last name as the kids in a series of unfortunate events.
And then who did you say?
Baudelaire, yes.
Who did you say translated this? Because I wanted to.
David R. McCann.
So David R. McCann, I think. I think he's done something very clever without realizing it. Now, I'm sure the three of you will agree with me that translations are not completely accurate sometimes.
There's so much lost in translation, especially for poems.
Especially for South
Yeah.
Korean, anything in Korean or Japanese or Chinese, it's very symbol based rather than letter based, and it's kind of difficult to. So obviously, someone has to translate this. David McCann translated this, and I don't think he did it on purpose, but it's interesting. I like the last line. He says, "As someone says to them, has an ox overheard? Does he pass them along?" Now, why? That's a bit of an odd choice of animal.
Ox.
An odd choice,
Yeah.
ox.
Because an ox is primarily used as as pretty much an animal that used to carry people from carriage from one end to the other.
Understood.
Has anybody played the Oregon Trail?
Of course.
I've died of dysentery many
Sarah
a
and
time.
I have played like every video game.
But
Well,
they
she has.
they went from Independence, Missouri to Willamette Valley by oxen. So the oxen was it wasn't a horse that they used to get from one end to the other. It was an oxen.
But here's what I was, and this is going. I said deep. We're now going like 20,000 leagues under the sea.
An oxen
Jules Verne
can,
here.
yeah, the oxen. But with the oxen, it can cause something that you say or do to go really far.
Yeah.
Makes his wonder expand even more.
I was gonna say, Josh, but with that last line, I'm about to go 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne here. Okay, that's how deep I'm about to go. Okay.
Is it going to be deeper than that one critic who said that a Backstreet Boys song could be made to be about a serial killer?
That is not true.
It's probably deeper than
Is that a
that.
voice from behind the camera?
So, I want to go back 2 lines. Traces that stir the waves of an old love. That implies that this guy used to be in love and isn't anymore, right? That's what it implies. Let us say we change some of the wording in the last line. Someone says them, has an ox overheard. Does he pass them along? Let's change he to she. just for the sake of what I'm about to tell you. I'm going to then translate this slightly, or not translate it, but I'm going to say it slightly differently, but it's still going to look the same. Nothing's going to change wording about it, but I'm going to say it differently. As someone says them, has a kiss and a hug overheard, does she pass them along? Do you understand what I'm playing here? How ox could actually be used instead of as the word ox, as the symbol O
hug and kiss.
and X.
I don't think that was an established
It was
symbol
not.
back then.
I don't think it was
Couldn't
either.
be, because
I'm
ox
saying
probably meant something completely different.
absolutely.
in-
But hey, it's
Great.
any interpretation. It's literally gladiators.
No,
Goddammit.
seriously. Every interpretation is valid. There's just some that are
The question
odd.
at hand would be this: what Korean word was used?
Yeah,
and
I'm not.
eventually
I am
translated?
absolutely not saying. I'm
Yeah.
sure it was. I'm sure it's supposed to be a word similar to ox. I'm just saying, what if we put this into our own interpretation here, and we just make a minor change, and we use that? That kind of still fits with the poem.
It would be an interesting. It would be an interesting accommodation. However,
Sometimes I just do that. Like
Yeah,
I said,
I think-
20,000 leagues under the freaking sea.
But I think the question at hand would be this: why a sneeze?
Why not a sneeze? A sneeze is a very violent, sudden thing.
Because
And I think that's what this is supposed
it's also
to
subtle too, which
It's also what?
it's a subtle thing. Because you could do a more modern, in a more modern way, if you had a middle schooler put this together, it could be called a fart
Yeah.
True.
instead of.
True,
And
but here-
because it
Something
can
else.
definitely travel and have the oxes over here.
But if someone sneezes, are you really going to, I mean, other than saying Gesundheit or God bless you, are you actually going to pay that much attention to it? A fart, I mean, people go like, oh, that guy just
Call the
farted.
police,
It
call the
depends on
police,
how.
things like that.
But that
I think he's trying to
I think
make
it would
more.
it would create greater question. A
He's
sneeze
trying
is
to make
subtle.
more attention out of something he feels there should be more attention to, and there isn't. That's what I.
But there's also the idea of second guessing yourself, because even if somebody passes gas, I know, Charlie does it pretty frequently.
Does not.
Are people really going to have the same kind of impact that the speaker in this poem feels that
Maybe
they're
if
gonna
someone were to pass gas.
Yes. Either which way, I think a sneeze wouldn't be. A sneeze is very subtle.
I think that's the point. I think like he's trying to say, because it's subtle, he is trying to write. Like whenever I write songs or write poems, I write the words as if it's something that people don't really pay attention to, and I try to put as much emotion and power into it as possible. Like I wrote a song called "They Came for Them," which is based off of what Martin Niemöller had written about Nazis. And like everyone out in the world there, I feel is like, oh, people are different and whatever, right? That's literally all I think. There's nothing we can do about it. And then I write the song where it's like, these specific horrible things have happened to these people. And that is why it is important for everyone to know about it. Here, I think a sneeze, it's not valued enough.
But I think any kind of function is not. It's gonna. Sometimes it'll have some. Depending on what kind of impact it has and what kind of attention it draws, it may not. It's probably not going to have that great range as the speaker in this poem thinks it does.
Another possible interpretation is that he's just hoping that people are paying attention to what he's writing.
Mhm.
Yes.
Right, that's what I got out of
Like
it.
honestly, I think anyone who writes can say that thing they want more than anything, unless they just write for their own personal benefit, is that they want other people to read and share in what they write and have this community around them.
It's like little Facebook.
like kind of. So they want that, and he's hoping that I think that it's possible that somebody could be that he's hoping that somebody's like interested in what he's written, and that when he sneezes, it means that somebody's talking about his work.
That's the way poetry is about those little details.
I think it could be even
Sorry.
more than just the writing, but or being a writer or a poet, but how just like we perform like these small minor actions every day, and we want them to be like recognized and important, and we hope they have meaning in the long run to people, even if it's someone you talk to now, but you won't see years to come by. Like, will you?
Welcome to Literary Gladiators. Beautiful.
That's probably one of the most accurate. I think that's one of the most well thought out arguments.
And I was actually
that
going
wasn't
to
my own,
add on to that.
and wasn't Ari's.
Well, hey, I was actually going to say the same thing. She just jumped on
A
me.
few more things, and then
Yeah, you go ahead.
We had different arguments. my
we
friend.
like I know personally like I want to perform like small like actions of kindness, and I hope they carry on to other people. And even we don't get to see the outcome of that, but you can just only hope it carries on to another person or someone else.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And what I was going to say was to build on what Sarah had just said, which is actually what I was going to say before Sarah said it. Cool enough. Is that yeah, Sarah and I think really alike. Is that I feel that like a lot of things in life are taken for granted and they're subtle, but like I want to throw another 20,000 League Under the Sea moment at you. Okay. What if this was written on someone's deathbed, right before they're about to die, and then read the poem again? I literally think that this person may be describing what Sarah just described about, like, how when you're just about to pass away, when you're just about to die, things, not necessarily, but like when things are in front of you, like, let's take this hat, for instance, I guess.
That's a nice hat.
It is. Nice hat, right? So, let's take this hat, right? If you're just living your life, you're doing your work, working 9 to 5, doing whatever you do, you look at the hat every day and you're like, hey, it's just a hat, right? Look, just a hat, right? If you're about to die and you're about to lose everything that you love and everything you have, you look at the hat and like, wow, look at these colors. Look at this green, look at this purple, look at this beige, and suddenly everything just jumps out at you. That's what I feel this could easily be. This could be the last moments of someone who is dying and literally looking at the world and saying, wow, everything is so amazing. And I'm about to lose it, and I want to make sure I can bring it all in.
It's those little details, but I also feel why a sneeze as opposed to why would somebody want a sneeze is wondering why would their sneeze travel a distance and miles, and why would they wonder if that is how their impression would be judged?
Maybe it's not necessarily saying the sneeze itself is traveling that long.
It could mean anything, but a sneeze is not necessarily... I would think that as much as a sneeze is not as embarrassing as another bodily function, I think that it's more so... It would be a question not necessarily as in regarding wondering if somebody's making an impact or a good impression, but more so is somebody saying or doing something that they may regret.
Maybe when he says weather, as in sniffed at the weather, he's not talking about weather as in sunny, rainy, snowy, whatever. He's talking about weather as in what's going on around him. I sniffed at the weather and I sneezed. Therefore, saying I I got a glimpse of what is going around me, and it bothered me so much that I sneezed. Like, when you fart, that's something internal. Again, what Josh said, but if you sneeze, that could just happen. It could be like, Kim said.
There's people that have a reaction that if they get nervous or have some kind of...
But like when it comes to general people, what Kim said about a violent reaction from irritant is a very accurate description. That's usually when you sneeze. Maybe when he talks about weather, he's talking about what's going on around him, not necessarily rain, snow, sleet, or hail. So I mean, this is a very interesting poem, and I have to say it's probably going to beat out that other poem that I really like, The Black Sun. I like this one better. I think there's a lot more directions you can go with this. I feel that especially with a translation involved.
Mhm.
that
Oh, yeah. I
you,
mean,
you could find probably 10 different translations. of
Black
the
Sun
song.
was also translated too.
Yeah, that's why I really like the translated ones a lot better, because you have so many interpretations, not just from English but also from Russian, like Black Sun, or this one, which is South Korean. And I feel that these types of poems have multiple can have multiple meanings and unlimited imagination, and that's why I like poems.
Final thoughts, anyone?
I love this
I
discussion.
liked it. Yeah.
I love
It's,
the poem. I
it's
love
a
the
more,
discussion.
it's an interesting poem to talk with about people on its own. I was not like, oh my god, this poem is amazing, tell all your friends. But with talking with people about poetry is sometimes more interesting than just reading a poem itself.
But Kim, we are telling our friends on YouTube.
Oh yeah, but I mean, like, I would be like, oh my god, you guys have to read this poem. It's the best poem ever. Changed
Okay.
my life, cleared my skin, watered my crops.
You guys have to read this poem. It's the best prayer ever. You gotta water my crops and whatever else she just said.
I can water crops, but never mind.
I've actually been. This was a poem that I randomly selected from a vintage book of contemporary world poetry, edited by J.D. McClatchy. That hat looks like something Holden Caulfield would wear. But this is where I found, and this is one of
about phonies.
this is one of the few collections, or one of the few print outlets to which I found a sneeze, which I definitely have to check out more in this collection, and I'm definitely inclined to check out more from Chong-Ju. Which,
From this, I definitely want to check out more from him.
It's definitely amazing the people that we've gone over on this show.
Osip Mandelstam was great.
Yeah, he was amazing. We went over an A.D. Houseman poem that was 4 lines, and we got a pretty hearty discussion out of it.
This one was one of the best discussions we ever had for a poem.
I would think so. I think that this was one of our.
I could keep going, but I know.
And I think it's great when we all have differing ideas, but the way that we describe them is amazing. Alrighty then, be sure to join us next time for another episode of Literary Gladiators. For now, keep reading. Keep reading.